Questions. Let me start with a simple question. How many of you have ever been hurt, not by enemies, but by people you trusted? Colleagues. Sometimes even ourselves. Questions. Life doesn't break us because of lack of intelligence. Life breaks us because of misplaced trust. Today I am not here to make you suspicious of the world. I am here to make you wise in the world. Questions. Because trust is like a glass cup. Once cracked, even if you repair it, the crack always remains. So today's topic is not negative. It is protective wisdom. Questions. Point to 9 people you must never trust in life. Not hate, not avoid, just never trust blindly. Let me tell you a secret of human nature. Questions. If someone enjoys gossiping with you, they will gossip about you. Such people don't carry information, they carry poison. They sit next to you, smile sweetly, and say, "Don't tell anyone." Questions. But the moment you hear that sentence, I run internally, because today you are their audience, tomorrow you are their topic. A wise person once said, questions. If a person has no loyalty in conversation, don't expect loyalty in action. There is a difference between kindness and convenience. Some people don't value you. Questions. They value your usefulness. They disappear when you struggle. They reappear when you succeed. They don't ask, "How are you?" They ask, "What can you do for me?" Remember this line. Questions. Real people stay during storms. Fake people arrive after sunshine. Watch carefully. When things go right, they take credit. When things go wrong, they give excuses. Questions. Such people are allergic to accountability. They say, questions. It's not my fault. I had no choice. Everyone does it. A person who cannot own their mistakes cannot be trusted with your future. Because trust grows where responsibility lives. Questions. This one is dangerous. Some people don't want you to heal. They want you dependent. They enjoy seeing you confused. They enjoy seeing you insecure. Questions. They enjoy being needed. They don't help you grow wings. They make you comfortable in the cage. Real friends empower. Fake friends control. If someone feels threatened by your growth, questions. They were never your supporter, only your spectator. Today they stand for honesty. Tomorrow they stand for profit. Day after tomorrow they stand for popularity. Such people don't have values. Questions. They have adjustable principles. Remember, if someone can compromise their values easily, they can compromise you easily. Character is what remains when no one is watching. People say, questions. It's just a small thing. But life is not destroyed by big betrayals alone. It is destroyed by small, repeated disappointments. If someone cannot respect time, words, questions, or commitments, they will not respect your emotions. Trust is built in small moments, not grand speeches. Some people are never wrong. They are only wrong. Questions. Every story they tell has one common hero, themselves. They use tears as weapons. They use sympathy as manipulation. They don't want solutions. They want attention. Be careful. Questions. Because once you stop agreeing with them, you become the villain in their story. In public, respect. In private, disrespect. In front of others, support. Behind closed doors, control. Questions. Such people care about image, not integrity. True respect does not need an audience. If someone honors you only when people are watching, they are performing, not valuing. Questions. This is the most painful one. They say, "Why are you changing? You were better before." Don't dream too big. But listen carefully. They don't miss the old you. Questions. They miss the controllable you. Anyone who truly loves you will be uncomfortable with your growth, but still support it. Anyone who tries to shrink you was never meant to walk with you long. Questions. Have you noticed how gossip usually begins very softly, not loudly, not aggressively? It often begins with a smile, a lowered voice, and a sentence that sounds very innocent. Don't tell anyone. Questions. But I trust you. At that moment, our ego feels special. We feel chosen. We feel important. We feel like we are part of some inner circle. And because of that feeling, questions, we forget one simple truth of life: a person's character does not change based on who is listening. Think about it from daily life. You're at work, questions. A colleague sits next to you during lunch and starts talking badly about another colleague. How lazy they are, how selfish, how unprofessional. You nod, you listen, you don't interrupt. Questions. Somewhere inside, you even enjoy the drama because it makes your lunch less boring. But let me ask you honestly, when you leave that table, questions, do you really believe that person will suddenly become loyal to you? If someone can tear down another human being so easily, what makes you think your name is protected? Questions. Gossip is not information sharing. Gossip is character leakage. It reveals far more about the speaker than the subject. A wise person once said, once someone shows you who they are, questions, believe them the first time. If a person is comfortable breaking someone else's dignity in front of you, they will be comfortable breaking yours behind your back. In families, questions, this happens even more quietly. A relative calls you and starts complaining about another relative. They speak with emotion. They justify themselves. They say, questions, you're the only one who understands me. And again, the ego feels validated. But pause for a moment. That same emotional tone, that same complaint, filled voice, questions, that same story. Don't be surprised if it is repeated to someone else tomorrow with your name in it. The mouth that cannot keep peace cannot keep secrets. Let's be very clear, everyone talks. Questions, everyone shares experiences. That is human. But gossip is different. Gossip has a flavor of enjoyment in someone else's weakness. It carries judgment, exaggeration, and sometimes even lies. Questions. And people who survive on gossip are not interested in truth, they are interested in attention. You may think, but they are honest. They speak openly. No questions. Honesty is speaking directly to the person concerned, not about them to a third person. Gossip is cowardice disguised as openness. In friendships, gossip is one of the biggest silent destroyers. Questions. A friend who comes to you regularly with negative stories about others may feel entertaining at first. You laugh, you react, you bond over criticism. But slowly, something dangerous happens. Questions. You start trusting a person who has already proven they are untrustworthy. One day, when you have a disagreement, when there is a misunderstanding, or when you are not present to defend yourself, questions, that same storytelling skill will be used against you. And the painful part, you won't even hear it directly. You'll hear it through changed behavior, cold responses, broken relationships. Questions. By the time you realize what happened, the damage is already done. Social media has made this even worse. Gossip today doesn't need a room, it needs a phone. Screenshots, forwarded messages, questions, private chats, everything feels temporary, but nothing really is. The person who enjoys sharing screenshots of others' conversations with you will one day share yours too. Questions. Trusting such a person is like writing your diary in public and hoping no one reads it. Ask yourself a simple question. Does this person speak respectfully about people who are not present? Questions. If the answer is no, then don't give them your vulnerabilities. Don't give them your secrets. Don't give them your inner world. Questions. This does not mean you must confront everyone or cut off people dramatically. Wisdom is quiet. Wisdom simply observes and adjusts distance. You can be polite without being personal. Questions. You can be kind without being open. You can listen without trusting. A mature person knows when to stop a conversation gently. Sometimes wisdom is simply saying, questions, I don't know the full story, or maybe they have their reasons. Such sentences act like mirrors. Gossipers don't like mirrors. They like audiences. Also understand this, questions. People who gossip are often deeply insecure. They build connection by pulling others down because they don't know how to rise themselves. Once you see these questions, you stop feeling angry and start feeling cautious. Compassion does not require closeness. Understanding does not require trust. The goal is not to judge them as bad people. Questions. The goal is to protect your peace. Trust is not about liking someone, trust is about safety. If a person's words create chaos around them, that chaos will eventually reach you. Questions. So remember this in daily life, at office desks, family gatherings, tea stalls, group chats, or late night calls. The way someone speaks about others is a preview of how they will speak about you. Questions. If loyalty is missing in conversation, it will be missing in action too. Choose conversations that uplift, not conversations that poison. Choose people who speak with respect even when they disagree. Questions. Because in the long run, silence with wisdom is far better than connection built on gossip. And when someone starts with, "Don't tell anyone, but," smile gently inside and remind yourself. Questions. This is not a secret being shared, this is a warning being given. Questions. One of the most painful lessons life teaches us is this: not everyone who stays close to you does so because they value you. Some people stay because you are convenient. Questions. And convenience can look very similar to care, until the day you stop being useful. In daily life, usefulness wears a very friendly mask. It calls you often. It praises you generously. Questions. It tells you how important you are. And slowly, without you realizing it, it ties your worth to what you provide. Your time, your money, your skills, your connections, your emotional support. Questions. As long as the supply continues, the relationship feels warm. The moment it pauses, the temperature changes. Think about that friend who calls you only when they are in trouble. Questions. They don't ask how your day was. They don't remember your struggles. But when they need help, suddenly you are the only one who understands. At first, you feel needed. Needed feels good. Questions. It gives us purpose. But over time, if you observe honestly, you'll notice the pattern is one-sided. You pour, they receive. And when you need someone, the line is busy, the reply is late, questions, the excuse is ready. That is not love. That is emotional borrowing without intention to return. In workplaces, this lesson becomes even clearer. As long as you solve problems, take extra work, questions, stay late and say yes to everything, you are praised as a great team player. But the moment you say no, the moment you draw a boundary, the tone changes. Appreciation turns into irritation. Questions. Respect turns into distance. And suddenly, you realize that your value was never about who you are. It was about how much you could carry for others. Questions. Usefulness-based relationships don't celebrate your rest. They only celebrate your output. Even in families, this truth quietly exists. Sometimes love is confused with obligation. Questions. As long as you are fulfilling expectations, everyone is happy. But when you make a choice for your own peace, when you prioritize your mental health, when you step away from constant giving, questions, you may hear, "You've changed." What they often mean is, "You're no longer convenient," but real love does not threaten you when you choose yourself. Real love adjusts. Real love listens. Questions. A very common trap is confusing gratitude with affection. Someone may thank you repeatedly, praise you publicly, and still not care deeply about you. Gratitude is about benefit received. Questions. Love is about connection felt. One can exist without the other. That is why when usefulness ends, gratitude often disappears too. Look closely at how people behave when you are struggling. Questions. When you cannot give advice, when you cannot help financially, when you are tired, confused, or silent, the ones who still sit with you without demanding solutions. Questions are the ones who see you as a human being, not a resource. There is also a deeper layer to this lesson. Sometimes we train people to value us only for usefulness. We overgive, we overextend. Questions. We say yes even when it hurts. We avoid disappointing others because we fear being abandoned. Slowly, our identity becomes service. Questions. And then we feel hurt when people treat us like tools, forgetting that we handed them the manual. Love does not require you to earn your place by exhaustion. Questions. A relationship built on usefulness is fragile. It survives only as long as the benefits flow. The moment life changes, and it always does, such connections fade without explanation. Questions. And that silence hurts more than arguments, because it leaves you questioning your worth. But your worth was never the problem. The problem was expecting depth from a surface level bond. Questions. The most inspiring realization is this: when you stop trying to be useful to everyone, you create space for real relationships to find you. People who value you for your presence. Questions. Not your productivity. People who don't disappear when you are empty. People who don't count favors like transactions. This does not mean you stop helping or become selfish. Kindness is beautiful. Questions. Service is noble. But kindness with boundaries is wisdom. Service with self-respect is strength. Pay attention to who claps when you rest. Pay attention to who listens when you speak about your dreams. Questions. Not just your abilities. Pay attention to who stays when there is nothing to gain. These are the people who love, not consume. In life, many will need you. Few will know you. Don't confuse the two. Questions. Because when usefulness ends, and it will someday, only love will remain. Questions. There is a quiet power in people who can say 3 simple words without hesitation. I was wrong. Those words don't make a person small, they make a person reliable. In daily life questions, we often look for intelligence, talent, or confidence when deciding whom to trust, but the real foundation of trust is something much simpler: responsibility. Look around you and observe carefully. Questions. When something goes right, notice who steps forward to take credit. When something goes wrong, notice who steps forward to take responsibility. Questions. The difference between these two reactions tells you everything you need to know about a person's character. In the workplace, this lesson becomes very visible. A project fails. A deadline is missed. Questions. A mistake is made. One person says, the system failed, the team failed, the situation failed. Another person says, I should have planned better. Questions. I missed this. Who would you trust with the next important task? Not the one with the longest explanation, but the one with the shortest excuse. Questions. People who avoid responsibility are not always bad people. Often they are afraid of being judged, afraid of losing respect, afraid of consequences. But fear does not create safety. Questions. And trust cannot grow where fear controls honesty. Responsibility is not about blaming yourself for everything. It is about owning your part. Even saying, I didn't know. Questions, but I should have asked, shows maturity. Such people don't waste energy defending their image. They invest energy in improving their actions. In families, responsibility shows up in everyday moments. A harsh word is spoken. Feelings are hurt. One person says, you're too sensitive. Another says, questions. I shouldn't have spoken like that. The first response protects ego. The second protects the relationship. Over time, you naturally feel safer with people who choose relationship over ego. Questions. Children instinctively trust adults who are responsible. Why? Because consistency creates security. A parent who admits mistakes teaches a child that honesty is more important than perfection. Questions. A leader who accepts faults teaches a team that growth is valued over blame. Responsibility creates an environment where people don't hide, they learn. In friendships, questions, irresponsibility slowly erodes closeness. A friend who is always late but never apologizes. A friend who cancels plan expects understanding. A friend who hurts you and then says, questions. That's just how I am. Such behavior sends a clear message. Their comfort matters more than your feelings. And when feelings are not respected, trust quietly leaves. Questions. Responsible people understand impact. They don't just think about intention. They ask, how did my action affect you? This question is the bridge between intention and trust. Questions. You may not mean to hurt someone, but if you are responsible, you will care that you did. There is also responsibility toward time, toward promises, toward words. Questions. When someone treats commitments casually, they are telling you something important. Your expectations are not their priority. Trust cannot survive in such soil. Questions. One of the most inspiring qualities in a human being is consistency between words and actions. Responsible people don't overpromise. They don't create expectations they cannot fulfill. Questions. And when they fail, and everyone does, they don't hide, they show up, explain honestly, and make amends. In daily life, you will notice that responsible people are often calmer. Questions. They don't panic when things go wrong because they are not busy escaping blame. They focus on solutions. They don't ask, who did this? They ask questions. What can we do now? Being around such people gives you peace because you know problems will be handled, not avoided. On the other hand, people who never take responsibility slowly drain energy. Questions. Conversations with them feel heavy. Nothing is ever resolved. Every issue turns into an argument. Over time, you stop sharing, not because you don't care, questions, but because you don't feel safe being honest. Trust is built when someone proves, again and again, that they will stand by their actions, that they will not disappear when things get uncomfortable. Questions. That they will not twist stories to look good, that they will not sacrifice truth for image. And here is a deeper reflection. Responsibility is not just about others, it is about ourselves. Questions. The more we take responsibility for our own reactions, choices, and growth, the less we blame the world. And people naturally trust those who are not constantly complaining, accusing, or justifying. Questions. Life will always have mistakes. Relationships will always have misunderstandings. Success will always have setbacks. But the presence of responsibility turns problems into progress. So in daily life, questions. When things fall apart, who steps forward? Who stands still? Who steps back? Trust does not come from perfection. Trust comes from ownership. And the person who can say, questions. This is on me is a person walking with for a long time. Questions. In life, not everyone who stays close to you wants to see you rise. Some people don't openly pull you down. They quietly hold you back. They smile. They support you verbally. Questions. They stay around. But deep inside, they are uncomfortable with your strength. And the most dangerous thing is that control often disguises itself as care. Control doesn't always shout. Questions. Most of the time it whispers. It says things like, I'm saying this for your own good, or I know you better than you know yourself, or without me. Questions. You won't manage. These sentences sound protective, but slowly they take away your confidence. Real empowerment makes you stronger. Control makes you dependent. Look at daily life. Questions. A real friend celebrates your achievements, even if they are ahead of them. A controlling friend congratulates you, but with a strange silence after. The smile doesn't reach their eyes. Questions. They quickly change the topic or remind you of risks, failures, or past mistakes. Not because they are practical, but because your growth threatens their position in your life. Questions. Control often grows where insecurity lives. A person who has not worked on themselves feels unsafe when you start changing. Your confidence makes them feel small. Questions. Your independence makes them feel unnecessary. Instead of growing with you, they try to limit you. In friendships, control can appear as emotional pressure. Questions. They want to know where you are all the time, who you talk to, what decisions you make. They get upset when you don't consult them. They interpret your independence as betrayal. Slowly, questions. You start explaining yourself more than living your life. That is not closeness. That is surveillance. Empowering friends are different. They trust your judgment. They offer advice, not commands. Questions. They respect your choices, even when they don't fully agree. They don't panic when you don't need them every moment. They are secure enough to give you space. In families, questions. Control is often confused with love. Parents, siblings, or relatives may say, "We know what's best for you." And sometimes their intentions are genuine. But intention does not cancel impact. Questions. When guidance turns into domination, when care turns into constant interference, growth suffocates. Empowerment means preparing someone to stand without you. Control means making sure they never can. Questions. In the workplace, this difference is very clear. A good leader teaches you skills, gives you opportunities, and encourages you to think independently. Questions. A controlling leader keeps information to themselves, discourages initiative, and wants you dependent on their approval. One builds confidence, the other builds fear. Control is often subtle. Questions. It doesn't say, "Don't grow." It says, "This is enough for you." It doesn't say, "Don't change." It says, "Why are you becoming different?" Slowly, Christians, you start shrinking your dreams to keep peace. And the moment you start shrinking, something inside you starts breaking. Real friends don't compete with your growth. They clap loudly. Questions. Even when you are winning, they don't feel replaced when you become capable. They don't guilt you for becoming busy with your purpose. They understand that your success does not reduce their value. Questions. Fake friends feel powerful only when you feel unsure. They give help in a way that reminds you of your weakness. They bring up the past to keep you there. They say, "Questions. Remember where you came from," not to keep you grounded, but to keep you small. One of the biggest signs of empowerment is encouragement toward independence. Questions. A real friend wants you to think clearly, decide wisely, and stand confidently. They don't want to be needed, they want to be chosen. Control wants loyalty without freedom. Questions. Empowerment allows freedom and still receives loyalty. Pay attention to how someone reacts when you say no. Empowering people respect boundaries. Controlling people punish you emotionally. Silence, questions, anger, guilt. These are tools of control. Supportive people may feel disappointed, but they don't manipulate. Also notice how you feel after interactions. After meeting an empowering friend, questions, you feel lighter, clearer, and more confident. After meeting a controlling person, you feel confused, drained, and doubtful. Your body often understands before your mind accepts. Questions. This is not about labeling people as good or bad. Many controlling people don't realize what they are doing. They are acting from fear, not intention to harm. But awareness does not mean tolerance. Questions. Understanding does not mean sacrificing yourself. You are allowed to grow beyond people. You are allowed to outgrow conversations, dynamics, and roles that once felt safe. Questions. Real friends adjust their position as you evolve. Fake ones try to freeze you in the version that benefited them. The purpose of connection is not to cage, but to uplift. Questions. The purpose of friendship is not possession, but partnership. Choose people who light candles in you, not people who keep you in their shadow. Questions. Because the ones who truly care about you don't need control. They trust your light. Questions. One of the clearest mirrors of a person's character is not how they behave when things are easy, but how they behave when sticking to values becomes uncomfortable. Questions. Values are meant to guide us when it is hard, not when it is convenient. If principles only appear when there is no cost, then they are not principles at all. They are decorations. In daily life, questions. This shows up very subtly. A person talks passionately about honesty, but bends the truth when it benefits them. They speak about loyalty, but disappear when loyalty demands sacrifice. Questions. They praise simplicity, but chase shortcuts when no one is watching. On the surface, everything looks right, but under pressure, the mask slips. Think about the workplace. Questions. Someone strongly opposes unethical practices until a promotion is involved. Suddenly, silence becomes their strategy. Or worse, justification becomes their language. Everyone does it, they say. Questions. This is how the system works. What changed? Not the situation, the convenience. When values depend on reward or fear, they are unstable. And unstable values create unstable trust. Questions. In friendships, this inconsistency hurts deeply. A friend supports you when your opinion matches theirs. But when you stand for something different, they withdraw support. Questions. Their respect depends on agreement. Their loyalty depends on alignment. That is not respect, that is conditional acceptance. Real values allow space for disagreement without withdrawal of dignity. Questions. Families also reflect this lesson. A family may speak about unity, but when conflict arises, fairness disappears. One rule for one person, another rule for another. When values bend to protect comfort, questions, power, or image, relationships become confusing. You never know where you stand because the rules keep changing. People with flexible values often justify themselves very convincingly. Questions. They don't see themselves as dishonest, they see themselves as practical. They don't say, I compromised my principles. They say, questions, I adjusted to the situation. An adjustment has its place in life, but not at the cost of integrity. Integrity is when no one is watching and you still do what is right. Questions. Notice how such people behave with different audiences. With seniors, they appear respectful. With juniors, they may be dismissive. With friends, they speak one way. In public, another. Questions. Values should be consistent across spaces. If respect appears only when there is benefit, it is performance, not principle. This inconsistency creates emotional insecurity. Questions. You don't know which version of the person you will meet today. The fair one, the selfish one, the bold one, the silent one. And when people are unpredictable in values, questions, you stop feeling safe around them. Trust requires stability. Values provide that stability. Look at daily promises. A person says, questions, I always stand by my word. But when keeping their word causes inconvenience, they find excuses. They blame circumstances. Over time, questions, you learn that their word has an expiry date. The moment it becomes difficult. One of the most inspiring qualities in a human being is quiet consistency. Not loud speeches about morality, but simple questions. Repeated actions that match words. Such people don't need to announce their values, their choices reveal them. There is also a deeper truth here. Questions. Sometimes we get attracted to people with flexible values because they make life easier in the short term. They agree quickly. They bend rules. They avoid conflict. But in the long term, questions, they bring confusion, disappointment, and mistrust. What feels comfortable today becomes unstable tomorrow. Values are like roots. When storms come, trees with shallow roots fall first. Questions. People with weak values collapse under pressure. They may survive socially, but they lose respect internally. And respect is hard to regain. Ask yourself these questions. Can this person be trusted when there is something to lose? When telling the truth may cause discomfort? When loyalty may cost opportunity? Questions. The answer to these questions reveals the strength of their values. Also reflect inward. This lesson is not only about judging others. It is about self-awareness. Questions. Are there moments when we adjust our principles to avoid discomfort? When we stay silent instead of speaking up? When we choose convenience over conscience? Questions. Growth begins when we notice these moments without excuses. Strong values don't make life easy, but they make life clear. You may lose some opportunities, but you gain peace. Questions. You may disappoint some people, but you remain aligned with yourself. And alignment creates confidence that no external validation can replace. People may not always agree with those who stand firm. Questions, but they respect them. And respect is the foundation of lasting relationships. You may be flexible in methods, but values should be firm in direction. Questions. In a world where opinions change quickly and loyalty is often conditional, choosing to stand by your values is a quiet act of courage. Questions. And choosing to trust people whose values remain steady, regardless of convenience, is one of the wisest decisions you can make.